Okay, well, I'm Jen Artan. Thank you for joining our session today. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Jamboard and how to integrate it as a third-party app into your Avenue.ca courseware. But what I want to do at the beginning is I'm going to launch this poll. And just to find out, have you actually used Jamboard at this time? Or maybe you're thinking about using it, but have you used Jamboard with your learners yet? So the poll will show up in the middle of your screen. I'll just give you a couple seconds. I see a couple more people haven't voted, and I'll count you down. Oh, fantastic. Okay. I'm going to share the results. You should be able to see the results showing up on the screen in front of you. So a whopping 87% of you have not used Jamboard yet. That's okay, because today I am approaching it as though we are true beginners of Jamboard. So we'll get a chance to explore the features and functions of the tool together. I'm also going to be giving a hands-on element to the workshop so that you can get into Jamboard and play around with the features just like your students might do. So just give me 1 second and I will start to share my screen. And again, any questions that you want to ask, put them in the, I think there is a Q&A. No, there's no questions in here. Yeah, we can put them right in the chat. Just, sorry, give me 1 second. And I'll be sharing my screen in just a moment. Okay. All right, so you should see my screen in front of you. Okay, so as I'm presenting, I'm not actually able to see your questions. So as I'm presenting, I will pause from time to time to go back and check the questions. And then I can actually ask you to, if you're comfortable coming on mic, to come on mic and ask your questions live. That's fine too. So we are going to get started. So fantastic. I'm glad you're here. Jamboard is something that I'm finding is an excellent tool. Today, I'm going to show you a little bit about what Jamboard is and what Jamboard isn't. I'm going to show you how to create and find Jamboard templates that might be useful for you in your learning objectives. Of course, remember, it's not about the tool. It all comes back to what are you learning? What are you learning? What are you teaching? What's your learning objective? And what is the overall goal of the lesson? I'm going to show you how to share Jamboards with your students so that they can edit them and play with them. And I'm also going to show you how to integrate Jamboard, or the best way to integrate Jamboard into Avenue.ca. There's a couple ways, but I'll give you my ideas on what I think might be the best for our students. Okay. So what Jamboard is. Jamboard is a Google tool available to anybody with a Google account, which is fantastic. We know there are different levels of Google accounts. There's that basic Google account, which everybody can have access to. Then there's the Google Apps for Education, which gives you basically unlimited space, but maybe some extra tools that could be quite useful. And if you're part of a school board or other higher learning organization, often you have access to that. And then, of course, there are the free, the premium Google, the Google Enterprise, I believe what it's called, and they have got some amazing things that you could do, unfortunately, for a fee. So I won't even talk about that, since most of us would be looking at what can we get for free? What are those open educational resources that we don't need to pay for? Because frankly, I don't think we should be shelling out any more of our hard-earned money than is absolutely necessary. But Google, if you have a Google account, you absolutely do already have access to Google Jamboard and a whole host of other apps that are available in your application launcher. So Google Jamboard is what they call it. They originally designed it as an interactive online whiteboard. Now there actually is a physical Jamboard that looks like a smartboard. That, remember way back when we used to be in class face to face, long time ago, and the giant smartboards. There is a Jamboard that is designed to be used with Google Jamboard, the software versus the hardware, because nobody has been face to face, or at least not face to face a whole lot this past year. Google Jamboard has evolved as this online interactive whiteboard, especially with the K-12 folks. K-12 teachers have exploded the functions and features of Jamboards in ways that the creators never even imagined. So they've really opened up how to use Jamboard, especially with learners that might be distracted by all those extra features inside of Google Slides or PowerPoints that might be just a bit too much. I'll come back to that moment or that point in a moment. So it actually has, if you've used Google before, you've shared other Google Docs, slides, sheets, things like that, you know that you can have multiple users on it at the same time collaboratively. And now that's the fantastic thing about Google is the collaboration features. That is where it wins over many other tools or apps, is the ability to have students working at the same time on a specific goal or task. So Jamboard can do that. Now, Jamboard has what's called up to 16 touch points for simultaneous collaboration. Now, what that means is, and I've been trying to figure that out because there's all these, nobody seems to know the exact number, but from what I've been able to determine, you can share your Jamboard with up to like 50 or more. Some people have said up to 250 people can be on the same Jamboard at the same time. But how many people can actually be touching, dragging, moving, and operating within that frame is limited to 16 people playing around with it at once. So keep that in mind when you're developing things for your students. But usually I don't think that would be an issue with us, with our learners. And if so, there's a way that we can kind of work around it. So Google Jamboard is just one way to engage learners when you have that synchronous or asynchronous virtual classroom. And you know that if we're using Avenue.ca, and many of us are, obviously we are using Avenue.ca, a lot of us are still fully online. Some of us have gone back a little bit face-to-face, that hybrid, sometimes we're there, sometimes we're not. But Google Jamboard is just one way. There are plenty other ways, other third-party apps that could be useful as well, but I'm going to focus here today on Jamboard, what that is, why K-12 is so excited about it, but what does that actually mean for us, for our particular audience and our particular our students, our users, and our teachers. Jamboard is not presentationware. So in other words, it is not the same as Google Slides, and it's not the same as PowerPoint. It's not like a Prezi. It isn't presentationware. It's an interactive whiteboard, and there are some differences that I'm going to go over, and just to make sure that you're aware of that. There are similarities between Google Slides and Jamboards. Again, I'm going to show you that in just a moment. And the good thing is that it's not only available to users who have Google accounts. I know that is something that you have to consider with your students. If I'm going to be giving them yet another tool to use, do they have to go ahead and create an account and remember the login and remember the password and that sort of thing? You know, if you've got them on ESL Library or another, third-party account, Kahoot, I'm not sure that they need to log in. They might. Just the fewer things that they need to do, the better. So the teacher needs to have a Google account in order to create the Jamboard. However, the link can be shared with anyone. So you generate that link, you share that link, your students click on the link. Doesn't matter if they have a Gmail account, they can get in theory. There's always hiccups along the way, and Google is still working out some of those bumps, but for the most part, you will be able to access it. So again, to create, you need to have that Google account, obviously. To use it, not necessarily. So here's what Jamboard and Google Slide actually looks like side by side when you look at the features. Again, there are some difference. Remember, Google Slides, this is the presentationware. There are things Google Slides are designed to do that Jamboard's just not designed to do. And that's okay, they've got different functions. And that's what we're going to talk about here. So as you know, just like in PowerPoint, the frames or the thumbnails are located along the left-hand side. I always feel like a stewardess when I'm saying, if you look to the left, you will see your frames, and the frames are all loaded right here. You can click on the frames, you can move them. Anyway, so the frames are all there, in the upright position. But The thing is, with the Google Slides, as you know, the toolbar has all of these fantastic options for animations, for different views, for different layouts, for the slides to see the master view, the add-ons. You could add subtitles, you could add all these different things. And it's okay, it's good, but it can be distracting and a little scary for students that are not technologically savvy. When there's too much there, it is what's known as the extraneous distraction. So it can be a little bit nerve-wracking to be in a Google slide, which, maybe the teachers are doing, interactive tasks within a Google slide, certainly is possible, but it doesn't have the same kind of drag and drop maneuverability that Google Jamboards has, which is why it is such an awesome tool to do the thing that we need it to do. Now, the limit, of course, is here. There are only 20 slides or frames available in Jamboard, as opposed to it pretty much being endless in Google Slides. Also, the frames are available along the top, which would be the toolbar in the Google Slides. The frames are all at the top. Now, you can actually expand that and make them a little bit bigger so that they appear thumbnail size like you see in Google Slides, but otherwise they will just show up in this little tiny box along the top. There are fewer editing features than Google Slides. You don't have as many options for things like font and color and animation. That doesn't really exist in the same way. There is a workaround, and I'll show you that in a moment. The pen tray opens up to the left-hand side, which would be familiar to many of us who have had access to smartboard tools in the classroom. It is very similar to the pen tray in Smart Notebook, except it doesn't have as many cool features as Smart Notebook, but it still has the basic things that you would expect there to be in a pen tray, including the pen, the eraser, a select tool. Select allows you to grab, drag, and move things around. A sticky tool, add images, add shapes, add text, and a laser pointer. There is no embedding of hyperlinks or videos inside Jamboard. Remember, it's not meant for that. If you want to embed videos or links, you would need to do that in Google Slides. Version history. Now, if you're familiar with using the Google suite of tools, version history is a very, very useful thing when you're collaborating. Version history allows you to open up the history of the document or the slide or the sheet to see who's done what and when. Now, inside Google Jamboard, K-12 teachers had realized early on there was no version history. And that's okay, except of course, the K-12 students using Jamboard, they figured that out early on. They figured out the teacher doesn't know who's deleting stuff. So the anonymous little monkeys would get in there, delete, 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 or add their own comments to it. And teachers had no idea who was doing what and when. Google has been extremely responsive. Google said, okay, we're listening to the teachers. We're going to make version history available to you in the coming updates. And I just checked this morning, thumbs up, version history is available where I am. If you don't see it where you are, it is coming. It is actually happening right now. So version history is showing up. And that's a really, really useful feature because you might, or a student might accidentally delete something that you want to return, because you can spend hours creating these slides and not know who the anonymous little monkey was that deleted all of your hard work. So there is no present mode in Jamboard because it's not presentationware. So Google Slides has it, PowerPoint has it. There's no present mode. You're there, that's what you see, and that's what you get. But it has exactly the same share functions as any other Google app. Google Docs, Google Slides, things like that. You can share by just clicking on that blue share button and adjusting your share permissions. Now, when you want students to all be on the same document at the same time, which we're going to do today, you want it to be shared so that everybody with the link has editing access. Now, one piece of advice before I move on, if you're going to create a Jamboard and share it with your students, have a master copy. Keep your master copy, even though there's a version history now. I don't trust it yet. Have that master copy that you don't share with anyone else, and make a copy of that for your classroom activities until we're sure that we can, trust the version history if it's there. Because you don't want to accidentally delete things that you're not able to get back. Okay, and that's it. I mean, this is essentially what they look like. Okay, so what I'm going to be talking about today is, why would we use Jamboard? So we have all these really great functions and features already embedded inside of Avenue. So why use Jamboard? What does it bring to the online class? What difference does it make to your students and to your teaching? Well, as you know, Avenue.ca has a number of different activity types, like the crossword puzzle, word games, questionnaires, H5Ps, which are a really useful tool. Now, the thing is with this is that they are great tools, but they seem to be best used asynchronously by individual students. It is a bit more challenging to get students to work in groups on a crossword puzzle or something of that nature. So when you want students to be putting their heads together and collaborating in real time during your online class, the Jamboard, Google Jamboard, will fill that gap for you. It will allow you to have this platform and use it so that your students can work together on something that and give them additional practice, introduce something, whatever the language objective is. So just some ideas. It's a whiteboard. You can do many different things. Some of you mentioned in your the pre-workshop comments that you've seen like interactive books that K-12 have been making, or things like that. You certainly can do that. And now that comes back to the final point I wanted to make tonight, consumption and creation. We don't want our students just to consume the technology. The idea is that they're going to use the technology to create, to produce. And certainly that can be done with Jamboard, and I'll come back to that point towards the end. But other things that you can do, you could create feedback for presentations. You want to get a quick 4 corners. I don't know if you ever did this in the face-to-face classroom, where you'd have one part of the classroom represents one opinion, the other something else, and based on something that you read, the students go to the corner, which yes, and they interact with each other and they see who's on opposite sides and they discuss. You can do the same thing in a Google Jamboard. So it's really interesting how, like I said, mostly K-12, but other teachers have manipulated Jamboard into being something useful and relevant for engagement for our adult newcomers. Review key vocabulary, brainstorming, warm-up games. The sky's the limit. Jamboard is certainly a tool that will let you go ahead and explore these kinds of things. But the one thing I did want to say, though, is just because Jamboard exists doesn't mean you have to use it. I mean, it's there. But if the tool that Avenue provides, for example, the H5P, is maybe a better function for asynchronous individual work, then certainly use that tool. I think that Jamboard works best when we're collaborating, but I mean, Jamboard can work as an individual task as well. Okay, so this is what I'm going to show you today. I'm going to be providing a link coming up really soon. I'm going to show you how to use Google Slides. Remember I mentioned Google Slides? It actually is important when you're talking about creating anchored backgrounds inside of Jamboard, because a Jamboard is basically a blank slate. It's plain, there's nothing there. So how do you get those backgrounds, those charts, those tables that are anchored in place, which means they're not movable? Because there's some things that you want to be movable by the students, by the users, and there's some things that you don't want them to be able to drag and drop. So how do you do that? And one of the tricks that teachers have found is using Google Slides to create backgrounds, and then taking a screenshot or making a JPEG from the Google slide and importing that as a background into your Jamboard. And I'll show you what I mean by that coming up, and why that's important. The one thing to remember is Google is Google. It's the same tool. So the Jamboard and the Google slide have the same dimensions. So when you're taking that screenshot or creating a JPEG from your Google slide, it has exactly the same dimensions as your Jamboard. So that means that there's not going to be distortion so that you might get from somewhere else. You might be able to do it in PowerPoint, but I found just using Google Slides works fairly well. I'm going to do some demonstrations. I'm going to show you how the manipulatives work inside Jamboard. I'm going to show you where I think Jamboard would fit best inside of Avenue.ca, which I think would fit best in a forum. So right now, at the moment, you cannot directly embed Jamboards. I hope that this is something that is fixed coming up in future updates, because it would be super nice to have a Jamboard directly embedded as a page inside your Avenue.ca courseware. Right now, you can't do that. So the workaround for that is to create a forum, provide the link, and provide instructions in the forum discussion. You can alternatively create an assignment as well, but again, the assignments, there's a few other things that you would have to do with Jamboard in order to do that. And an assignment might be more of an individual task as opposed to the collaborative task. Okay, and hopefully through what we're about to do, I'm going to demonstrate why Jamboard works in specific communicative language tasks. Because like I said at the beginning, it's not about the tool, but we've been online for so long. I think you guys know that by now, right? You don't want, and this is what teachers have been telling me, I don't want to learn a new tool. I want to learn the stuff that I already know, that already exists, and I want to make better use of the stuff that's already there. I don't want something brand new. So this is what I was talking about earlier. And this is just a tip that I give when I'm talking about creating templates. I use a split screen. So I have my screen split in two. I use a dual list or screen split. It's just a little Chrome extension you can get that splits your screen so that it doesn't move around on you. You can have two equal screens. So I've got my screen split. On one side, on the left here is my Jam. On my right is my Google Slides. So I create the template that I want inside of the Google slide. And when I'm happy with it, I go ahead and I make that the background in my Jamboard. I don't know if you've got literacy learners, but I only recently discovered that there is a font you can get in Microsoft Word that will produce this dot trace font. And I was super happy because I was going nuts trying to find it online, couldn't find it. But there is a font, doesn't work with Google Docs. You actually have to use Google Word. So if you want that font trace, you can trace name, trace words. There is a font you can get. I don't think I included that as a resource, but if you're interested in that, let me know. And I can certainly make sure you have access to this specific font that lets you create that. So the idea is that you can create that background and then use your screen cap. Now, how you screenshot on a Mac versus a PC versus the different devices you have might be slightly different, but take a screenshot when you have letters or numbers. The reason I suggest that is because it's not a perfect tool yet, even though Google Slides and Google Jamboard, they work together. Sometimes, and this is true if you've tried inserting a drawing into anything Google, it looks perfectly clear and legible in the drawing, and then you put it in there and then it's fuzzy, right? The resolution goes off for some reason. Google knows about this. It's a known issue. Hopefully that will be fixed, but I still see that happening. So if you want to reduce that kind of fuzziness or the blurriness, the best way to do that is to take a screenshot and not download it as a JPEG or PNG, because when you do that, that's when the fuzziness happens. So I take a screenshot, save the screenshot to your background, and then I use that to make my background in Jamboard. This is what Jamboard looks like. I'll take you there live in just a moment. So a live Jamboard, like I said, is a blank canvas. So how do you set that background? How do you make this, what you've just done in Google Slides appear? You just click on the button at the top that says Set Background and select Image. And then you can go into your desktop or your downloads, wherever you've saved it, and find the image that you've just downloaded. And then that will anchor into your background. So it's not going to move around your Avenue sorry, your Jamboard background. It will be fixed in place. Whereas if you just add an image, which I'm going to show you, if you added this picture that I've saved as an image, it would be movable. Students could move it around, drag it, and you don't want that to happen. So that's why you use the tool as it is. Now, the one quick thing I'm going to say before I share the link, so to get some hands-on practice here, is using devices. And again, this is created for very, very low foundations, literacy learners. As we know, there's not a whole lot of resources for them for our particular audience. So I found that using an iPad with the Jamboard tool, students are able to use their fingers to trace the letters, and it works really seamlessly. So far, it's working nice. But alternatively, let's say the tool, the tech, whatever, it works for some students. Maybe you don't want to use it as a technology tool. You also have the option under Jamboard to download all of this as a PDF, and there you have a worksheet. Worksheet ready to go, exactly as you see here. So if you download it as a PDF and you're back face-to-face, or your students have access to a printer, which I'm not hopeful that they do, but the teacher does have access to turn this into a physical worksheet as well. Okay, so this is what I was saying earlier. So you've got your background saved in Google Slides. You've created it. You've got your the things, your chart, your table, your clouds, your brainstorm clouds, whatever it is that you want to anchor in place. You've created it in Google Slide. Now you can go up to, this is in Google Slides, remember, File, Download, and choose JPEG or PNG. Either one is fine. And this will save to your background, your desktop, and then you're able to upload that to your Jamboard background in exactly the same way that I just showed you. Again, remember, screenshots have slightly better resolutions. So if you're trying to create a background with letters or numbers, best to do a screenshot. If it's just an image, a chart, a table, a picture of a house, you certainly can do it by a JPEG or PNG. And this is how you share it. And again, I'm going to give you some practice doing that as well. So you've got your Jamboard open. You can actually look at it you can hover your mouse over the share button at the top, and I can see this is only private, only to me. So I know I haven't changed my share settings yet. I'm going to have to go ahead, open up the share settings, and click on the blue text. Now I want to make sure it says change to anyone with the link. Now, if you're part of a school board, you also have the option to only share it within the school board. But if you're not part of a school board, you want anybody with the link to be able to edit, is what you want to do in this case. So anybody with the link, you want it to be adjusted to can edit. And now when you copy that link into your Avenue.ca forum or live class or Zoom class, whatever it is that you're doing, the idea is that students will have instant access to it. Now, if you get students, and even today, if we do get people that say, I don't actually have access, what's going on? The other thing you can do is share directly with people by adding at the top. So if some students, for some reason, the link isn't working, add them directly to the Jamboard, and usually that solves the problem. Okay, so again, I'm going to come back to this at the end. So I'm just going to escape for right now. I'm going to pause it for a moment and ask if there are any questions.
Jen, I have a question. Yep. So is it better, like if you're just doing, like I've used Jamboard just to do warm-up activities, and I put the link in the chat in Zoom. So is it better to put it in the forum, or?
Well, either way, I mean, okay. I'll show you an example of what mine looks like. So I've got all my Jamboards in a forum called, let me see, I might be able to show you here. You can still see my screen, yes? Oops. Yeah. Okay. I can't exit out of here, sorry. All right, there we go. You should see my screen still, yes? My Avenue?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, good. And I'll go back to my courses. I'll just show you what it looks like in form. You certainly can, though the question was, can you share the link in a Zoom meeting or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams or Big Blue Button, which is what we have available for us in Avenue.ca? Yes, of course, you certainly can share the link. Sometimes that's the quickest way to do it, to be honest, right? Here's the link, go ahead.
Yes,
And
exactly.
certainly,
That's what I did. Yeah.
and if that's gonna work, then go ahead. I like to, so here in this case, scroll down, I've got all the Jamboards saved as a single forum discussion, and they're all loaded there together. So in this case, this isn't, I don't actually have any students in this class. This was from an older one. I created this for to demonstrate. But what you could do is you could add all your Jamboards together in one forum, or you can add it depending on the content or the unit, and students can come back to it here. And then if you click on it, for example, here's the how to use. So here's the forum question is going to be very simple. It's going to be, well, in this case, just a link, but you might actually have a reflection question in here as well, depending on what the Jamboard is. So the link is right here, and open a new tab, and then students have the access to go back and come back and revise it, maybe during the synchronous session or maybe afterwards as well. They come back and they say, oh, I wanted to say this, or I wanted to add something to it. And it just gives another way. But the same thing, if you've shared the link inside your Zoom, certainly they can go back and continue to work on it until you remove the access, and you can change it back to view only if you don't want students to be going back and making any changes afterwards.
Right. Yeah. I think this is a really good way because my students have wanted a copy of the Jamboard after. And when you just provide the link in Zoom chat, once the class is over, it's gone. So.
Okay. So what I'm going to do right now, and teachers, listen carefully. I am going to enter the share for the Jamboard that you see in front of you. Now, if you're having problems with it and you can't access it, you can still view what we're doing inside the Zoom platform. It'd be better, of course, if everybody can get in, but I don't want to, we're still limited in the time. So if you can't actually get in, maybe I can come back and help you later on, but click on the link right now in the chat. It's there. You should have access to it. I'm going to double check it. And I might get you to sort of straddle the Zoom and the Jamboard at the same time, because there's some things I want to, oh, look at that. There's some things that I want you to be able to see that I want to that I think is useful as a teacher. As you can see, I can see all the students, or all the users in this case, you guys are participants. I can see you guys all showing up here as those anonymous animals. Now, which anonymous animal you are, it's fairly easy to tell because you can actually jump ahead to another slide, and then whatever an anonymous animal follows you, that's the one that you are. So yes, I can see the dingo. That must, whoever's ever jumping to slide 3, that's where you're a dingo. So you can see what you are. So as you can,
got it. Okay.
So yes, so yeah, so if you're, the idea is that if you're logged into Google, your actual Google account will show up with your initials or your picture, things like that. But the teacher can now check and look at the frames and see who is where, and she can say, you know what, you guys are jumping ahead. I want everybody to go back to frame 1. Okay, who's ever the dingo and the crab, or the, what is that? Axia? I can't even pronounce that. Quagga. Yep, Quagga, get back there, right? So you're herding. You know, we've often said that teaching is often like herding kittens. Okay, we're actually herding you back into the frame. So
who's the elephant?
Elephant, stop, Dre. Elephant, stop. See, here's, I could actually find out, but I can only, I won't know who's actually doing it right now because you're all anonymous animals, but I can actually force you to log into your Google account if you had them. So what we're going to do here you'll see at the top of the frame.
Sorry, Jen, but I don't know who I am. But okay, I won't do it.
Okay.
Well, that was too much fun. Sorry.
That's okay. I'll let it go. No worries. The idea is the slides that say learn are the ones we're going to learn about. And if you go on to the next frame, everybody move to frame 2. You can do that by clicking on the frame or using the little arrow that will advance your frame. So just give everybody just a moment. And you'll notice that frame 2 and frame 3 are exactly the same, because I anticipated the group might be a little big. So you can go either on frame 2 or frame 3. I was going to sort it out by first names. If your first name is between A and L, you're going to go on slide 2. If your name is M to Z, you're going to go to frame 3. So this is just an example of the drag and drop functionality of the Google Jamboard. So again, I was thinking of something we can all relate to. We've taught healthy living, fruits and vegetables, and things like that with our lower level stage 1. So the task might be drag and drop. Now I can see on frame 2, somebody still has the pen tool selected. And if that's the case, you want to make sure to go to the pen tray and make sure that your arrow is selected and not the pen tool. So again, this is why you do the practice, and you would do that with your students as well. So you want to go to the pen tray. If you're still drawing by mistake, that's okay. You're going to make sure that that's select, and you know the tool that is in use, because there will be a black circle around it. So if you're looking at me in the Zoom room, I've now got my erase tool selected. Now my pen tool is selected. You want to have select tool selected in order to manipulate the drag and drops. Somebody put mushrooms under fruit. Come on.
Fixed it.
Okay. Then there's always the tomato debate. So somebody put tomatoes under fruits. That could actually be a correct answer, but would you really want a tomato in your fruit salad?
And the avocados. Oh yeah.
You would, okay. Well, there you go. So, yep. So yeah, we're getting people discovering the sticky. Okay, so you've got the drag and drop functionality. So now I'm going to get you to go to slide 4. And now slide 4 is just a learn slide. So you're not actually going to do anything here yet. So slide 4, I'm going to show you, and you're going to have access to this resource afterwards as well. So, and you can actually make a copy of this. So if you think this might be useful for you to use with your students as a how-to for Google Jamboard, certainly make a copy of that and use it with your students. No worries there. Stickies are on the pen tool on the far left-hand side, right below the select. So they're about 4 down. So that's what it looks like when you click on a sticky. It automatically comes up yellow. You can change the color to everything, including transparent. And I'm going to go to the next slide. You'll get a chance to do it in just a moment. So that shows you how to change the color on slide 5. Slide 6 shows you how to resize a sticky. So if you've got something that you are labeling, maybe parts of a house, maybe parts of the city, or parts of the body, things that you're using sticky notes for, and the sticky note comes out too big, if you click in the middle of the sticky, it will open up the handles, and the handles will allow you to drag and drop, to drag the dimensions of it so that it will be the size that you want it to be. You can also duplicate, add shapes, apparently. You can imagine the K-12 teachers trying to do this with their students, right? Okay, go on to the next slide. This is the do it. Now, I've only got 20 slides, so I couldn't make a duplication of this. On slide 7, you are going to add your favorite fruit and vegetable by adding your own sticky note. So this might get a little chaotic with the numbers that we have in here. Ideally, you're not going to have as many people in here at the same time playing around with all the features. So go on to slide 7 and add 1 fruit and 1 vegetable to your favorite. Now, this might be something teachers do and then look to see how many similarities there are. How many people like oranges? How many people like mangoes and apples? How many people like cabbage, right? So you might have that kind of discussion showing up here, but you can see that this is fairly simple to use. You can change the colors, you can change the size, You can organize them. Somebody might have put something in the wrong column. Certainly can, there's lots of opportunities here for you to have discussion and comparisons and things like that. Look at a persimmons. I'm not even sure I know what that is.
Delicious. You got to
Fruit.
get.
It's a fruit?
Yes, it was the original apple of the Garden of Eden. It's next time supermarket, Chinese supermarket sometimes, two kinds. Tell you all about it later. Delicious.
Fantastic. Okay, got some spinach. All right, so yeah, again, that's how you add the sticky notes. You certainly can play around with that, but I'm going to go on to the next frame so you can join me on frame 8. And frame 8 is a learn frame where I'm showing you. Now, the next thing you might want to look at is how to use the pen tool. Some of you have already discovered how to use the pen tool, and it is located at the very top. It's the first tool that shows up. You can have a pen, marker, highlighter, or brush. I find the brush actually works better as a highlighter. So scroll over to frame number 9. Now, again, with this many people on here, I'm only going to ask, maybe I'll get Cloudy, since you're right at the top and I can see you. Cloudy, would you be able to use the pen tool and highlight the vegetables on the list? You can change your highlighter to whatever color you like.
Okay. And then I'm going to take it with me. Oh, yes, I see it's coming with me. I see it's coming with me. Vegetables. Okay, there's an onion. Is that it? No, it's not.
You're on frame 9, yes?
Yes, I'm on frame 9.
Okay,
so
good.
I hit the pen. I changed the color to red. I actually hit the, the brush, highlighter brush. Then I tried to drag it across and a little red dot came with me. And then when I tried to put it on the onion, oh, do I have to swipe it? How do I? Oh, got it. Look.
Okay, there you go. Excellent.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. So there's a highlighter. So onions, again, the brush works better than the highlighter tool, but you can still see it. And you might, you might be underlining something, parts of a speech. You might be, circling. We do lots of circling, highlighting, and underlining, especially in the lower stages. Everybody can have a go. You'll have a chance to try all the tools out. So if you want to try the highlighter tools, I'll give you exactly 5 seconds to highlight whatever you like on frame 9, or to draw a happy face, smiley face, maybe draw a little kitten. Yeah. So yes, if you're using the very first pen, I can see the elephant has got the just the pen that's a default. So if you want to change it, you have to actually drag over, and then you can choose by just selecting the marker, highlighter, or the brush, and then you can choose the whatever else you need, whatever color you want to make it. Oh, there are people drawing cats. Look, of course, teachers are so creative and a little eclectic. Okay. Excellent. So that's your time is up on that frame. So go on to the next frame on frame 10, and this is showing you the other feature. Again, if you're going to be using this with students, you don't need to show them all of the features and functions of Jamboard, just the ones that they're going to be using on a regular basis. So this is one as a teacher you might be using more often than students, but I've used this with my students as well. So on frame 10, I notice a few people are the dingo, the Dumbo, and the dragon are all still on slide 9. Okay, now, and there's no way to actually move, because teachers are asking that too. Is there any way you can move all the students onto the right slide? There's no way to do that yet, but it's coming up hopefully in future editions. So maybe these two are, if you're look at the frame, it'll tell you which one you're on. You should be on frame 10. So this is just showing you how to use the added image. So if you click on that little mountain, now go on to the next frame, frame 11, it opens up very similar to other Google Docs or slides. It allows you to upload an image that you already have saved. You can put a URL in, do a Google image search directly here, or a Google Drive search. You have different options to add images. So if you scroll over to the next frame on frame 12, I'm going to give you an example. So somebody already looked for spinach. So maybe I don't want to just have the letters. I want to actually show you spinach. So I can do a Google search right here in Jamboard for spinach. And you'll see if you go on to the next frame, on frame 13. So frame 13 shows you all the different images of spinach that would show up when you do this search. So you just look through, you can scroll through, select the one that you like by clicking on it. When you click on it, that blue box will show up to say this is the one you've selected, and then you hit insert. So you can go ahead to frame 14. You've inserted your image, and if it's too big, you can resize it the same way that you resize sticky notes by clicking in the middle of it, using the sizing handles and dragging it down until it's the size that you want it to be. Okay, that brings us to do it. On frame 15, group A, and frame 16, group B. Again, group B was supposed to be anyone whose name begins with M and to Z. A is A till N. So I'm going to give you just a moment to find a picture of a favorite fruit, because we're going to have a potluck. We're going to have a fruit salad, and our class is going to build the fruit salad. So, and we're competing. There's group A and group B. Who's going to have the best fruit salad? You've got about, I'll give you about 30 seconds. Okay, somebody did a screen cap of me. Fantastic. Thank you. Oh, thanks.
How do you add them once you got it? Oh, okay, got it. I got it.
Enter. Yes.
I think. Yeah, yes.
Jen, I don't think it's working for me. I think maybe it's because there are too many users, or
you should all be able to use it at the same time. Remember, so which frame are you on? 16 or 15?
I was on 15, and the previous activity, when I clicked the image icon, it said select image, and that was it. There was nothing. I couldn't do anything.
Okay.
I don't know what happened there, but anyway,
we'll jump you over to frame 16 and see if it was that there's lots
of traffic. I had the same problem too.
Oh, look at that apple. Ooh.
I've lost the jam. Oh no, there it is.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I'll keep that in mind, and I'll come back to that. So if you're not able to do it, again, we are a fairly large group. I think your class, in this case, I would say we've got too many people on one frame. In order for it to work efficiently, I would have multiple frames, so or multiple Jamboards, and this group would work with this. And if you're in a Zoom or Big Blue Button, then you can share that as the group. So maybe 4 or 5 groups of 3. You can create your fruit salad and then come back and compare it. It does get to be a little chaotic when you have groups of this size. So that is something I'll look at. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. Apple. This frame 15, you're not winning the best fruit salad. I'm gonna look at frame 16. Let's look. Oh, okay. This one looks a little. Oh, look at some mango, some pineapple, and some blueberries. You can just and the kiwis. There we go. Fantastic. That would be a great smoothie. I'm not sure about carrots actually work good in a fruit smoothie, and this must be the persimmon that Claudia was talking about. Is that a persimmon on frame 15?
No, it's a lychee. I forgot. Okay, let me go get a persimmon, so you know. I'll put it in. You've probably eaten it before.
I might have.
Oh.
I've seen it. Okay, I have seen it. My students had brought way back when we did face-to-face. I've seen that fruit before.
This one is a dragon fruit. The one with red. The orange is the persimmon.
Okay.
Whoa,
I've seen it. I've seen the dragon fruit for sure.
And this orange is persimmon. Yum.
Okay, so now we've got a good split of the group. There's still more people on slide 15. Like I said, come back to it later on and see if you're having difficulties with adding it. I think that when the traffic's off it and it's smaller, you should be able to get onto it. Again, it has similar load features as Google Docs and Google Slides, so it should work. And if not, again, try that refresh, things that we would tell our students. So then you might, like I said, compare the two, who's got a better one. I'm not going to say who wins, but that's okay. frame 17, we're going to move on. I am keeping an eye on the time. Frame 17. So the other thing, of course, that you might be doing is adding text. And adding text, maybe you've got a listening activity where there's 5 sentences that you've isolated and the students need to order the text, and you want them to be able to move text around on the Jamboard. So that might be one way that you use it. Text box is located in the bottom right above the laser pointer, and frame 18. And again, I didn't make any copies of this. So again, only 3 or 4 people would be able to ideally use this at once. But again, the instructions on frame 18 would be to add 4 items to your grocery list. And like I said, you can go ahead and play around with this. How you would do it, you would click on the text box, but here's a little tip that I've noticed. I can create this and add the text box already so that you don't actually have to click on the text box. You can just click on the line and there is already a blank text box there. So the student would just have to click and enter text. And all of this is movable. So I can change the size same way. I can drag and drop the size and move it around. Maybe my list is growing, so I'm going to make maybe multiple columns. You could order them. What's the most important things that we need to get, or maybe order them because certain things are in certain aisles. Maybe look at a chart and prepare your list so that you're not running back and forth across the aisles, which is something I usually end up doing. I'm way at the other end of Sobeys and I realize, oh, I forgot to get ground beef, and I got to go all the way back over to the other section and get it up. So it's much easier to maybe have a list of the aisles and what's where, and then you can organize your list that way. I'm totally not that organized, but it could be something that you do. Again, what's the learning objective? Why might students do this? And that's what we would, it's bread and baguette might be in the same area. Fish and chicken would be in the same area. Dry foods would be in the same area. You can see the potential that this drag and drop feature would have with your students. And go ahead.
Does it work with any device? You know, we've got people with the iPhones and the little fingers and the some people on computers, but any device?
I've tried it on iPads. I've tried it on just a regular laptop, a PC laptop. I've tried it on Mac, and I've tried it on my phone, and it works. So far, I haven't had a problem with it. So with the iPad, there's actually a Jamboard app you can download, which makes it just a little bit more stable, but you don't need it. Again, it's if you've got that link and you send that link to your phone or to your other device, you should be able to get in there and access it. Ideally, use Chrome browser because it's a Google tool, so Google is optimized, or Chrome is optimized for Google use. So it would be better if you can. I haven't noticed that as coming up as being an issue, although sometimes it is a question to ask. If your students are constantly having navigation issues or they can't access a link, question number 1 should always be, what are you using? And often it's my phone. Okay, so if it's your phone, then are you able to get to a laptop or a desktop and try it from there and see? So as far as I know, it should be okay. And again, I'm keeping an eye on the time. And the other thing that you might have discovered on frame 19, there's also a shape tool. You can add circles and squares, and that actually is useful as like you can make it a background, and you could use it as like a little box to find all the verbs in a sentence if you're building some skills like that. And then finally, scroll over. I'm going to delete mine so that you have room. Just going to give you just a moment to go to frame 20, and you'll notice you can add a Giphy. The easiest way to add a Giphy is not by URL, but it's to have 2 frames, 2 browsers open. So you've got a browser open on one area. You know how to find GIFs. So let's say flowers GIF, GIF, or GIF, whatever your bent is. I don't particularly care. I usually say GIF, but that's just me. So you open up your Giphy. If you want to add a little animation, that's the one thing you could do. You find it on your GIF site and you drag and drop it. You should be able to drag, and there it goes. Oh, it's not. There it is. It's showing up. It just takes a little bit of time. So there you go. So you would think all you'd have to do is go in and add by URL, which is what was driving me nuts. It wasn't working when I did that. And then I found in a teacher help group that you don't need to do it that way. But you can add URL. I mean, you can add GIFs. Again, the sky's the limit.
Wow.
So I'm going to pause and just I do have all these resources available. I've already connected the resource list to the social forum where you saw this website advertised, but I can send that out to everybody as well. That would include this resource, then all of the resources, different kinds of Jamboards that you can make a copy of for your students. And the other thing that I didn't mention, I wanted to mention really quickly, was if you are on Facebook, search for a group called Teachers Using Jamboards. They are the K-12 group that has over 40,000 teachers across the world that have created some amazing like Jamboards, like with Scrabble backgrounds and all of these really cool tools that you can manipulate and use for adult newcomers to Canada when it makes sense. You can make puzzles. One of the Jamboard examples I have is a puzzle of Canada based on the language companion. And the other really quick thing I wanted to show you, because somebody had asked and I was hoping to have a bit of time to talk about that, where is it, is about me making those illustrated books. Okay, so if you could come back into the Zoom room, I know you're having fun on the Jamboard. I'll just show you really quickly what this could look like. Now, we've been using Jamboard so far as collaboration and working together. You certainly can use Jamboard as an asynchronous individual tool for students to create something, in this case, their autobiographical story. And you can see what it might look like. You would have the frame, right? In other words, the students would then fill out blanks depending on their levels. Of course, higher levels would have a lot more to, oops. I heard a gasp. Did you accidentally delete my frames? That's okay. Okay, you can add pictures. Like you can, yeah, I come from here, the dates that you came to. This is directly out of the PBLA language companion on About Me. These are actually movable. I don't know, the weather was sunny. You can actually write it out. Very, very, very super basic for a low level CLBs. And it could be something that they create. Now, if you wanted this to be added and tagged in your Avenue.ca portfolio, ePortfolio, you can create it as an assignment, but you would have to make sure that you work with your students so that they know actually how to submit it. Now that takes a few extra steps. That's why maybe it certainly is a tool that you can use to create and students could use to create. They can share the link with you and you can mark it that way. But in order to move it as a physical artifact into their ePortfolio, it would actually have to be downloaded as a PDF, which is actually not that hard to do. And if you click on the three dots, sorry about that background noise, three dots, download as PDF, it would go to the student's background. And just like on any other assignment in Avenue.ca, when they go to submit, they just attach the file into their assignments and then it's there and it's available. So I am going to pause it for now. I'm going to come back. I'm going to stop the share. I know you're all busy. I haven't had a chance to look at the questions, but I'll leave this few minutes. Hopefully I've been able to at least get over most of the questions. If there are additional questions, I will certainly still try to answer them and add that information to the resource, which I've put in the social forum. Oh, Paul, I can sort of barely hear you.
I'm so sorry. The chat's okay. Claudia has a question. Besides that, the chat is good.
Yeah, I was sort of there. Is Jamboard harmonized with Google Classroom? So does it post to Google Classroom from Jamboard, like ESL Library does? And I presume to Avenue is working on that. So, you know, if you're doing a Jamboard, do you have to,
It actually works better with Google Classroom in that it can be created by the teacher as make a copy for each. So it actually, again, it's a Google tool made for a Google Classroom. So it is a lot easier to use as an individual task if you want to create it that way. So it certainly does work better when you want to create those individuals. Other than that, in order for the students to use the same thing inside Avenue.ca, there's a few workarounds. They would have to know to make that copy first. And then, so you'd have to do a lot of support and practice with them. And that, once they get used to it, they can do it. But, it's make a copy, enter, attach, copy, enter, attach. I mean, those are the same steps. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a Google tool meant for Google Classroom. So there are better functions or functionality inside the Google Classroom. Just looking through the questions here. Oh, so yeah, so Nazanin was asking, can the book be added to ePortfolio? Again, yes, you create it in your in your Avenue.ca courseware as an assignment. You tag it to the correct skill or competency or about me. And then the only thing that the students need to know to do is to make sure that when they complete the Jamboard, they then save it as that PDF. The PDF then gets put into their ePortfolio, and then it's there. So again, remember what Jamboard was initially created for as a interactive whiteboard. It's certainly come a long way. K-12 and other teachers have really pushed the limits of Jamboard to make it into a tool that can be really interactive and engaging and useful for an online classroom. You have to find a way to engage the students, and I've been using Jamboards for one of the activities I have is the image a day. So in other words, at the beginning of each class, the students have to find an image that represents their mood, how they feel that day. So if they're a good positive image, if they're feeling grumpy, so this image comes on, and then we kind of discuss that. So each day, then they get that practice, their routine, getting into Jamboard, using the link, so using these digital skills incidentally, and then uploading the image and then discussing it. So they get a lot of practice using it, and it's been a really successful activity. I teach stage 2 students, however, and evening classes. So certainly have used it on both ends of the spectrum. Were there any other questions? Okay, we're all caught up. So this presentation has been recorded, and it will be available on Learn IT to Teach is their site. Check the Avenue.ca social forum if you have any extra questions or things that I maybe wasn't able to cover. I certainly will continue to look at the social forum and add some information, add the links, and add some resources for you, as well as somebody had mentioned the font, the special font that I was using inside the Jamboard. I found that on a site called Text Giraffe, as in giraffe the animal. So that's a free site, and it's got some really cool fonts that you can use to kind of make these infographics or things of that nature. So Text Giraffe, you learn something new every day. It was worth the price of admission just for Text Giraffe, I can assure you. All right, Paul's on the ball here. Okay, all right. With that said, I will stop the recording now and hang out just for a couple minutes, just in case there's any other final questions.